Good morning. I'm your host, Dale Josey, and welcome to our new YouTube channel, Aging with Grace 55 Plus, Diane Gilman. You'll recognize my co-host after 30 years in front of the camera connecting with baby boomer audiences on television, QVC, HSN, where she was responsible for $100 million in retail sales a year. Diane, welcome. Good morning. How are you?
Great. Ready to go. Loving this podcast, which is all things, I want to say, pro-aging.
Yeah.
So this is going to give us all a basis to age more gracefully, as we say in our title.
Yep. With
wisdom, with information, with innovation, and with inspiration. So, whoop, that's a mouthful. With all that,
what's up
for episode 3, Dale?
Well, I tell you what, one of our first questions we're going to talk about in just a minute, which is going to be what midlife brought you the greatest success, right? How did midlife bring you the greatest success? But before we tee that up, I understand that that's Central Park over your left shoulders because you're live.
It is.
You are live from New York. Can I say that?
From New York City. Yep. And there's just little sprouts of green coming out on the trees, and I had loads of birds on my garden terrace this morning singing to one another.
Lord.
Spring has proverbially sprung.
It has resprung. And what's cool about you're living in a 19th century, what is it, the W.R. Grace building? That just fits you, the W.R. Grace building, built in 19th century.
No, that's interesting. I actually met the heir to the W.R. Grace fortune when cancer played a role in my life with my husband. It was one of his descendants who actually was an oncologist and a great surgeon and treated my husband. I live in a building that was built in 1920. And it was a hospital for older patients.
No way.
Oh my gosh.
No way.
Dale, I never even put that together. That is so crazy.
Is that the symmetry of the universe decrees that this podcast series, Aging with Grace 55 Plus, Diane Gilman, is going to happen right here, right now. I love it. So, speaking of loving things, you've said that midlife brought you the greatest success. What does that mean, madam?
I think it means a lot of things. First of all, although I like money and I'm a great shopper and spender, it was always for the love of the craft and the if it brought financial success, that was secondary. But if it brought me a great sense of satisfaction, that I set really high standards for myself. So I was always trying to meet those standards. And then pretty soon I looked around and I thought, wait a minute, I'm almost 60 years old.
Wow.
This should be the end of my career. Everybody else I knew in the field basically had retired or just stepped away or wasn't here anymore. And here I was. And I don't even know if I would say that I was feeling like I was waiting for something to happen, but it was the personal connection of the product and the fact that I couldn't find a pair of jeans that fit me anymore because I had a chubby, out of shape, middle-aged body. When I brought together my personal needs and my emotions with my talent for the very first time, I married my talent to my heart, and it was meteoric.
Wow.
So that was at about 58 years old. It took about a year and a half to really develop the gene professionally, apart from the first one I made just for me personally. And then millions and millions of women resonated to that opportunity to connect the one garment that represented lazy weekends, family vacations, their youth and happiness to where they were today. And that was the light bulb moment and the beginning of the greatest success of my life.
Wow. And you know what?
Yeah.
You're absolutely beautiful at 77 years young. I mean,
Thank
look at you.
you.
You got your colors going. You're rocking the spring vibe, Diane.
Yeah.
And
Carrots and celery. That's me today. I'm the vegetable girl.
The vegetable girl, carrots and celery on a silver hair influencer. That's going to be your new moniker. That's what we're going to move forward with.
Here we go.
And folks, if you want to hear more about Diane's story that we're going to be covering not only today, but each week's podcast series, be sure to get a copy of her book, not only the podcast series, of course, but also his YouTube channel. Get a copy of her book, Too Young to Be Old. It's a great read. You can find it on Amazon. I will warn you, it is not for the faint of heart, because Diane shares the intimacy, she shares the what she had to overcome to get to where she is. So we encourage you to get this book. Although look at my bookmarker, it's like
I love that. This tells you that Dale has genuinely been reading the book. So
that's right.
Authenticity, you cannot beat authenticity. Thank you, Dale.
Absolutely. You know, and speaking of authenticity, I think that ties into your success as a tele-retail on-air personality. Your authenticity came through your message about your brand on QVC and HSN. How did that resonate with your 600,000 plus audience?
Oh, it was an amazing magnet. And I don't think you will ever accrue an audience or a fan club that substantial and that loyal unless you are telling the truth. And the only way to tell the truth is to live it. I always go back to one of my favorite country western singers, Tammy Wynette, who always said, you have to live a song to sing a song. So, here I was, and I've been pretty much cool girl all my life, and a fashionista in New York City, and middle age hit me really hard. I lost my husband to cancer, terrible battle. I gained a ton of weight out of loneliness. I stopped exercising and I became unfit. And one day I looked at myself and said, oh, ugh, I got to do something about this. Oh. And nobody really told you what to do. And I started thinking now, what would make me feel better? Of course, being in fashion, it would be a fashion item, right? That's going to cheer me up. Right. A pair of jeans, but no jean fit a middle-aged body because no company wanted to dress a middle-aged overweight woman in a jean. So then I found the next thing in life besides the authentic message. I found the niche. And there was a huge wedge of American women and then actually international women. Oh, and by the way, it's International Women's Day, so it's good we're
today
talking about. Yeah, so it's good we're talking about. Yeah, we're talking about all this.
I love it.
Yes, yeah. So I think that these women, when they heard me, I did a very different kind of presentation and I don't think it necessarily made the network comfortable at all, because it wasn't subscribed words like, oh, this is a great jean, you're going to love it. It was, if you, like me, have gained a ton of weight around your middle, if you feel overweight, if you've got muffin spill, if from middle age, then you need this jean because this is dedicated to you. And it was. So I was always telling the truth. I was always, I think for 15, 16 years of having my brand, DG2, on air, I never, even for one day, wore another bottom than a DG2 Gene or bottom. Wow. And so I knew it, I lived it, I breathed it. And that was what was so advantageous about being on television, selling it, was you had the chance the opportunity to express that. And I swear, it used to give people that were connected with studio and live studio and even the hosts, it used to give them agita. I mean, they never knew what story I was going to tell. But once I was started, they couldn't tell me to stop.
Oh no.
But it was, but it was usually a story about an experience I was having in my genes.
Yeah.
So then when I decided to step back from that, I realized that the value of this podcast between you and I is the age bracket we're in, which is the majority of America, the spending power of America, the voting power of America, and building this informational, emotional silo around everything 55 plus. Yeah. I think it's needed. I think it's wanted. I think for both of us, it's from the heart. We're always looking for a way to better our circumstances, because growing older is such a challenge in itself.
Yeah,
is it not?
It's a constant adaptation. It's not a time of mourning, but it's a time of rebranding yourself, right?
Because totally.
You have to keep positioning yourself in the next chapter. Otherwise, what's your choice, right?
But nobody helps you rebrand.
But nobody helps you do that.
Yeah, if you're a younger, and I can only speak from the female experiential point, if you're a younger female, I'm going to say 11 onwards, you've got a million different ways you can go here. And you've got your starlets, and you've got your rap artists, and you've got the music, and you've got the Twixter clothing, and what everything is going on. But if you're 55 plus, you've got nothing but a bunch of really terrifying drug commercials on cable TV.
Yikes.
And I have, when I decided to go gray, go white, and be authentic in my everyday appearance, I had nobody to follow. And as a matter of fact, we are going to have my hairdresser of 20 years, Troy, as one of our podcast segments. Troy is going to show you the amount of products we have to use to make this hair happen, and how they're from all different parts of the hair care and the beauty industry, and they're crazy. But you know what?
What?
No one gave us a guideline. And here's a guy who has worked for what I would say one of the two top salons in America for 20 years. And we were both sitting there stumped. We had no idea what to do. How are we going to make this happen? What was I going to look like? And you know why? Because celebrities don't want white hair. It tells what age you are, what bracket you're in, and you're not going to get any more jobs. So everybody is trying to look younger, and most people are not fooling anybody. And if we would just get comfortable in our skins and love where we're at and work with it, which I call rebranding me, we would be a more powerful force in the world today, which would be a happier place for us to be. So
being comfortable in your own skin versus you go to the checkout the market or wherever you are, you always see these magazine covers about a fake existence of truly happy couples doing incredible things, and that's not reality. Diane, the man in the mirror, the woman in the mirror, that's your reality, and you've got to get comfortable with that, because that's all you got. That's all you've got. So I'm glad to hear you say getting comfortable in your own skin.
Totally.
Before we move on, though, you hit on a salient point, because the whole idea of Aging with Grace 55 plus, my podcast series, and also this YouTube channel with my co-host Diane Gilman, is about the whole idea of aging older, right? And you hit on a salient point, Diane. Women are seen totally different in the aging specter, in the aging space, than men are.
Yeah.
Men, as we age, we get gray, even though some of us are not admitting to using anything to cover the gray in my beard. But let's say theoretically, if I did. But that's something that I choose to do or not. But with women, there seems to be more pressure to not give in to gravity, to not give in to the changing. What are your thoughts? How do you react to that, madam?
Totally. I saw a friend of mine who I've been friendly with for 40 years, but sort of lost communication with after COVID, during COVID. And she said, whoa, that's like the bravest thing you could ever do. White hair. She hadn't seen me for years, but seen me on TV with dyed red hair. And I said, yeah, I'm really learning how to work with it. I'm making it very dramatic. I'm loving it. And she looks at me and she dyes her hair blonde, even though it's white. And she said, I'm not ready to do that.
Yeah.
Ready? Not ready to do what? Admit the age bucket you're in. Does that mean you're admitting that you're an old lady and you're out of play now? We're here with this podcast to change that. That should not be. You should have more freedom than that.
Absolutely.
And when you look back at so many movies, and I just saw Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief.
Great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, but in the movie and in reality, he's like 30 years older than her. And that is the norm. The man can go on being virile and having a younger wife who gives him more virility just by the statement of it, but you cannot switch that around. And every time I have a friend who has a younger boyfriend, I hear all kinds of snide remarks. And so I'm not going to say life is unfair. We all know that already.
Correct. Yeah.
But aging is definitely a much trickier, much more challenging than for a woman than it is for a man, without a doubt. And sometimes with this white hair, it's interesting. You get treated like you're this tiny little fragile thing, and let's be nice to her because God knows she's going to lose her brain in about 5 seconds, and she's got white hair. And then I was actually watching this morning before the podcast a movie from almost 100 years ago. I think it was 1930, with Norma Shearer and Tyrone Power, Marie Antoinette. And she had these gorgeous white wigs on, even though she was 17, 18 years old, actually, in history.
Right.
And I so identified with it immediately. It was like, oh, I really like the way she did that wig, and it's white, and it's just like my hair, and So I think there were periods in history where younger women, for some reason, adopted this hair color and had these magnificent do's and built whole fantastical wardrobes around it. Well, that is what I am doing, and it's called rebranding. And can I tell you, I am having the most fun a fashionista can have. New colors, celery and carrots.
Yes.
New thoughts about hair, new ways of doing makeup. I mean, you know what? It's an open field. See it as a sense of freedom. But, also know that sooner or later, people are going to figure out where you're at in life. And if you are uncomfortable admitting that, then you're sort of on the side of ageism. Boo.
That's
rather than being on the side of pro-aging, which is where we are, saying, you know what? These have been some of the happiest moments of my entire life. Have been in my 70s. Yep.
Absolutely.
And let's keep going on that one.
Well, you know what? I absolutely love that because the whole idea of society is once you get a certain age, push it to the side because we've got a younger generation coming. And you know what? That's Madison Avenue, right? Because everything pushes to the younger, right? Who are theoretically the largest, who have the most money. But actually, it's the older folks. We're the ones that control the wealth and trillions of dollars. So my folks, so listeners, this is not a time for us to be relegated to the sidelines. But according to my
or
guest host,
be ashamed
or be
of where
ashamed.
you're at, because I always feel that if you're a woman, and I know I dyed my hair and I felt like I fit in better with society, and I felt like there was more of a flow, and I was more comfortable with people guessing my age than assuming my age. But here I am. And I will tell you,
happy.
people do react to me differently, but when I look at me in the mirror, I like what I see, and I feel liberated because I'm being truthful. This is who I am.
So let me ask you this, Diane. Being liberated, is that part of your model, your plan for navigating midlife successfully? This whole idea of rebranding.
Rebranding for sure. And I would say to anybody out there, and that could be somebody like me who's single. It could be somebody going through a great divorce. It could be somebody who lost their husband. If you're in this phase of life, 55 plus, it is rebranding on your own terms. And why your own terms? Because nobody cares to do it for us. And now I'm beginning to see products come out like makeup for women 50 and older, for hair products, women 50 and older. So thank goodness we're beginning to get a little bit of recognition, but honestly, it's so unbalanced for who we are and how much we represent in our society to what's coming in and getting filtered. So, but I'm loving this rebranding. I'm discovering whole new things. And the one advice I would give anybody who's going 55, 60, 65, don't try to be 40. Yeah, you know what? Maybe 55 is the new 40. But not totally. Be where you are. We will never crack that thick layer of ice we have in society between being young and being old, because quite frankly, middle age isn't even respected in our society, right? That's already seen as the steep decline, when in fact you have so much more control over it than we as a society ever admit.
But so here's the thing with your international brand, when you're creating DG2 denim jeans for women. And by the way, for our listeners or for our audience who may just be tuning in, you'll recognize Diane Gilman, my co-host for Aging with Grace 55 plus, with her same name, Diane Gilman. What a coincidence. After 30 years on QVC HSN, where she's responsible for $100 million in retail sales annually. And as part of that, when you talk about respect for older people, you've traveled internationally, Diane. And I want you to validate a point that I've noticed, which is in other cultures around the world, older people are respected versus here in America. Is that true as an outsider? Because you've traveled the world, you've seen it. What are your thoughts?
Yes, you know, no? I will tell you that I think if you put that respect in a family bucket, that may be true. Where if you're in Italy or you're in France or you're in Germany
or China,
or China, but I wasn't doing TV in China. I was producing in China, where the mother or the father figure is brought into the household and taken care of in old age. When it came to dressing, Italian women and French women held on to their youth or the obsession with fiercely.
Really?
And yet they loved the jean because they didn't have to admit to anybody they were wearing a middle-aged jean for a woman who was no longer the perfection of a 20-year-old body. In Britain, I think they're less stranglehold on youth. I think they see that as a matter of fact, sort of as bad taste. And so they will go into that middle age, but maybe not fight as hard as the rest of us to pick up those areas. Like I still fight hard. Like I know I've got these skinny little legs, but they're in shape. So I will always highlight those in an outfit because I know they're a total advantage to me. But not every female in a particular national society will do that. But you know what? There was a absolutely 100% consensus that if you could buy an article of clothing that was going to make you feel better and feel younger, therefore you would look younger because you were enjoying yourself and not strangled by a jean or, you know, wearing something so low cut it was
embarrassing,
dangerous to be out on the streets in it. That was 100% vote for sure. So for sure, I haven't changed my philosophy of dressing, except now I wear color because white hair is good for that. But you know, my philosophy for dressing is still emphasize the good points and de-emphasize the kind of not so good regional parts of your body, like my upper arms, right? So
regional parts. So your body's a country. We got to work on regional parts.
That is correct. That's correct. I never said that before, but you know what? It's right. Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Learn something new.
That's right. So we're going to keep revisiting the country of Diane Gilman, and we're going to talk about some other regionalism, because we're going to go to something which was devastating to you. We're going to, in our transition to that, Diane. Before we leave this point about colors and highlighting the regionalism, you've said in your book that women tend to disappear into baggy clothes.
They have to.
Yeah.
No
and why
choice.
is that?
No choice.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, if you look at, and what I knew the statistics on Inside Out was how you, as an industry standard, plugged in the measurements for your potential customer with a pair of jeans. And that left me wearing nothing. And really and truthfully, that was just the new shape, the middle age into old age shape of my female body because of hormones. So I had no choice at a certain point. I had to wear oversized. I had to wear baggy because I didn't fit standards of an industry that was really obsessed with youth and perfection. And you know, reality TV did nothing for us as older girls except really initiate a whole belief that you should be young and rich and basically do nothing all day except go shopping. Sounds good to me, actually. And never grow old and never grow imperfect. But that was not the case. So that was a big initiative for me in terms of designing the DG2 Gene. I just got very tired of being the invisible woman. And I will bet you if we polled 1,000 women across America, they would tell you past a certain age, you absolutely start to feel invisible. If you were a female that was used to garnering attention as you walked down a street or walked into a restaurant or a party, I can guarantee you today, the only reason I get any attention is because it's so unique to have this white Marie Antoinette hair that people are just kind of trying to figure out why you're not dyeing your hair, or who are you that you're doing this, or you know, that was the low point for me in terms of becoming middle-aged, and it became the high point of my life because being sick of being ignored led me to my lightbulb moment of creating a middle-aged Gene. So I somehow made something spectacular out of a recurring event that was less than happiness or fabulous.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue to our next part, because we're going to talk about something, a detour and setback is what I like to call it, because folks, Diane is a cancer survivor, and that it was a gut punch despite all of her success, despite her inspiration, despite her bright outlook on life now. She has a testimony to share about this gut punch. So Diane, what did breast cancer change your life, and how did that inspire you? You said it actually inspired you. How so?
That was one of the most amazing set of circumstances. I had just put off getting a mammogram because no cancer in my family, no breast cancer. I had a million excuses, and I was always too busy, and I was always getting on an airplane. When I got diagnosed, it was stage 3 breast cancer, which is not a good place.
That's a death sentence.
Especially not on Christmas Eve, which is when I got the diagnosis. Yeah, 2017.
This gets worse and worse. Oh no.
No, I went home and I was alone, and I don't have any real family anymore. And I had always heard you're never going to survive unless you have strong family bulwarking you, and giving you a foundation. So I was scared about that. I immediately called up a friend of mine and said, I've got cancer, and whether I survive or not, I want to chronicle this. I want to write a book about it. Would you be willing? Would you come on board? And she said, absolutely. She flew up and was with me for my first chemo treatment. But the other thing too is, I think that I had been in a bubble for most of my life. You've got talent, you've got looks, you are in an elevated position by being on television, you're bigger than life, and you think nothing is going to touch you. And you think if it does touch you, well, you're you, right?
You're Diane Gilman.
Right. You're this TV personality, and this fashion is so important. And yeah, good luck on that one. So cancer is a great leveler. Cancer is a great egalitarian. Cancer doesn't care. It doesn't care if you've got money. It doesn't care if you're beautiful. It doesn't care if you're on TV. It doesn't care if you've got talent. It is equal opportunity. And I will tell you a very quick story that really sums up what I learned, because the things I learned from cancer were so past due being learned by me and so valuable that they set me up for the rest of my life, and recognizing how incredible the gift of life is, and cherish every moment of it. So I'm in a chemo room. We all had our own separate rooms, and a lot of the nurses had seen me on TV and even bought my genes. So I'm sitting there getting infusion, and they usually serve you lunch. I was in a great hospital, Mount Sinai. You got a gourmet lunch if you wanted it. You actually got a shoulder massage or a foot massage while you were going through chemo. Oh, yeah. It was New York City, Fifth Avenue, all the way. So suddenly all the nurses go, Mary, oh my God, you guys, Mary's here, Mary's here. She was in the room next to me. Never got a chance to see her. They all come running in. And these chemo nurses are under a lot of pressure. They're not that friendly, and they're not giving you a lot of extra time. And I understood that.
Right.
Mary, how are you? Oh my gosh, we're so glad to see you. Mary, we've got your favorite lunch today. You know what? We saved you a couple of extras. So they come into my room, and I said, so, like, ladies, what am I, chopped liver? How come nobody even offered me lunch? They said, Diane, you never eat lunch. Do you want lunch? And I said, well, no, thank you. But I want to know why she's getting 3 lunches and I'm not getting anything. And they said, Diane, she has stage 3 breast cancer in both breasts, as did I. She is living in a shelter with her only child. And the food is so horrific in the shelter that she won't eat for days at a time. We are her lifeline to a meal. And
Wow.
so I hope you don't mind that we are donating your lunch to her to take back to the shelter and share with her child. Well,
Wow.
okay. It's
Wow.
hard enough for me to tell this story even today without bursting out in tears. But if you
Course.
wanted ever to be put in your place in the universe and understand it, that few moments, that hour of chemo did it for me. Always remember Keith Richards, the Rolling Stones, gave an interview recently, so he's up there in years, and he said, you know, life's a funny thing. Nobody wants to grow old, but nobody wants to die young. So
Wow.
everybody,
That's good.
keep that in mind. You're not alone.
Wow.
Nobody is saying, oh, yippee, you know, I want to be old. Yes, obviously, if we could all stay young for 100 years
Right.
and then move on,
Right.
we would. But
Right.
that is not
That's
what's
not in the
happening.
cards.
So
it's
we
not the
got
deal.
to must enjoy and revel in and deal with exactly where we're at. You know what? It's pretty good. I'm telling you.
It's pretty good, as is this podcast. We know you're going to enjoy it. And we're so grateful that you're here with us on our YouTube channel.
Yep.
I'm your co-host, Dale Josey. That's Diane Gilman, my co-host. And you'll recognize her from 30 years on QVC, HSN, where she became the #1 fashion personality responsible for $100 million in retail sales per year. Also, your jeans. Diane, my wife, loves DG2 denim jeans for women, and she's not alone. So thank you for that contribution to my life. With that said, and finally, Diane, I heard you a moment ago. I want to underscore this. You said, howdy, day, howdy, here I am. I think that was a nod to me being in Kentucky as a native, formerly from New York. So thank you for recognizing my home state, where howdy goes a long way.
No, it was not. Actually, Dale, I would love to say it was. But actually, I'm getting ready to go to Dallas, Fort Worth.
Okay.
It's a long story. A club I belong to is being honored, and we're going for the Dallas Fort Worth Flower Show, but there's not going to be a cattle drive through the center of Fort Worth. And crazy enough, within my cable package on TV, I have the rodeo channel. So I've been watching that. I've been watching that to get ready for going to Texas and going through all this socialization down there. And they say howdy a lot. So,
it just rolls off your tongue. So take Tammy Wynette with you and get your howdy on and your cowgirl hat, because I know you're going to be spectacular in Dallas. Diane, until next time.
No cowboy hat.
No cowboy hat, but you'll look fine. Live long and prosper, folks. Universal blessing. There's nothing better than that. Bye.
Bye. See you next week.
Okay, bye.